one of the more curious Marvel movies we've had in a while, which is the Thunderbolts, which Josh and I were kind of concern trolling last week of just being like, is anyone excited for this? This kind of just feels like the last bit of
I wish I'd been on. To tell you guys that I was excited.
Why were you excited for what to Josh and I seemed like the last bit of gristle on the bottom of the pan that Marvel was like, we just need to scrape this off until Fantastic Four gets here?
No, I was excited because, first of all, I think Florence Pugh is someone who's incredibly easy to watch. And I'm not just talking about this movie, but just in general. Easy to watch, someone who I'm very sympathetic to. She made a kind of, not time travel. God, what was the name of that movie? Oh, the movie she made with Andrew Garfield.
We Live in Time.
We Live in Time.
Emotionally broke me. I was just like, I'm good.
It was tough.
I lived through this with my family. I don't need to watch this anymore.
In that movie. So I was excited for Florence Pugh to have a bigger role in the MCU. David Harbour is another actor who, I adore watching. And so I was like, okay. And I kind of think we've seen this with Marvel several times. When you have characters who are lesser known, who are maybe less beloved, perhaps by the audience, it gives them more leeway to do more things with them. And I was looking at this and I was like, look, none of these are big name characters. This gives some Marvel writer, some creative person a little more latitude to create the movie they want. And what they created was a movie that's frankly not an action movie. It's a movie about dealing with depression. Mm-hmm. And I just adored that we had a film that zigged when everyone was expecting it to zag. It's not guys, is this an action movie? It's not an action movie, is it?
I mean, categorically, I guess so, but also let's put a pin in the therapy thing, because that's definitely was my biggest takeaway. And even Josh and I last week were a bit kind of raised eyebrows at some of the early reactions that were basically finally the Marvel movie that tackles America's mental health epidemic. And we were like, get out of here, that can't be real. And it actually kind of is real, and we can maybe debate how successful that is. Josh, you and I sat next to each other the entire time watching this, so what did you think of it?
Yeah, so as we were waiting for the inevitable post-credit scenes, we started talking a little, and then we were just save it for the podcast. We got to save it for the podcast. But yeah, and I think we sort of landed in different places on it, and definitely, full disclosure, the power of low expectations was here for me, because I think Brave New World burned me so badly. I was one of the last few people hanging onto the Marvel train, no, hey, it's gonna be okay, guys. Yeah. It's gonna be okay. And after Brave New World, I was just like, you know what? This has crushed my spirit so much that I don't even want to get excited for Thunderbolts, because if they mess up Florence Pugh, what are we doing here? And so I kind of went in grimacing a little bit, and within the first, I'd say the first 30-ish minutes or so is a little sluggish as they're getting the team together, but once everybody was there and bickering and bantering, once they're all locked in that same, secret base room or whatever, I thought it picked up from there and went really well. I saw people kind of joking about it as Marvel's Suicide Squad, and I was like, well, DC did this twice, and audiences didn't want it either time, so how is this going to go? But, I mean, again, leave it to Marvel to figure out the magic formula that DC hasn't quite figured out what to do with yet.
Wait a second, hold on.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say, I don't know, the second the James Gunn Suicide Squad?
Yeah, it was solid. Yeah, I liked it.
Got good reviews.
Yeah,
it did.
Got good audience
I think
reviews.
that movie went...
It's a pandemic victim.
It's a pandemic
not a victim of being a bad film.
It was, and didn't
That's
something
fair.
come out where it's a bunch of people actually did watch it on HBO Max? It was just sort of no one went and saw it in the theaters because we had another
I think
Corona wave or whatnot.
Yeah, it eventually I think found its audience.
I was going to say, deep spoiler. I'm going to be talking about that film a little later when I criticize you guys for not having more faith in James Gunn and Superman.
We can end the episode with Jason's Superman rant.
Yeah, we're grown ups. We can take it. But yeah, so to get back to it, yeah, I was, yes, part of this is like that it's a very pleasant surprise that Marvel kind of seems to have found its mojo again. And I think, like Jason said, in a big part because there's not a lot of well-known lore with these characters that they have to stick to. But a lot of it, too, is just, oh, yeah, we suddenly remembered that when you cast good actors and actually put them in locations rather than in front of a giant blue screen, like, it feels like a movie. And hopefully this is just sort of a wake-up call to Marvel to be like, this is how you do, a movie that may not be your next Avengers Doomsday or whatever, but as one of your building block movies to something better, you still have to put care and effort into it. You can't just expect it to go on autopilot and audiences will show up.
So this is maybe where I'm going to be a little bit of curmudgeon-y old man, even though I'm the youngest one in the group. I'm a little like frustrated by this movie, and frustrated in a way of just sort of like, I kind of agree. I basically agree with all the things you guys say, while also being like, it's not enough for me at this point. And I deserve to, when this is on Disney Plus or whatnot, give it another go, because I think like it is a step in the right direction for Marvel, and definitely like it. I keep finding myself like the things I like about it, I keep questioning myself and being like, but are you just grading it on a curve? Like at this point, like is the bar for the Marvel stuff so low to where like coming out of the movie and being like, well, that was coherent, and well, those actors were definitely all in the same space together, and there was no CGI goop, and there wasn't, even though like this is a movie, like I would say the two Marvel movies that you like most need to have seen before this are maybe like the Falcon and Winter Soldier show and Black Widow. But even then, like, guys, I barely remember anything that happened in those, and I like found myself being able to follow what was going on here. So like, you even kind of take out the like, we've gotten so convoluted with needing to connect all this stuff that like it's impossible to follow at this point. And I think this cast is really like fun, and they have great like banter and chemistry with each other. But maybe something for us to explore is the whole like mental health angle of this movie. Like really frustrated me at a certain point, and it was kind of similar to sort of when we talked about the Captain America movie earlier this year, and I was basically like, if you're gonna be like, this is a movie about like dark political corruption, like effing go for it. And this was a bit for me of like kind of walking out feeling like I really enjoyed all those people together, but I kind of did not care for the part of it that was basically about like, this is all about like these characters needing to let go of their trauma or like find self-worth and self-actualization. And maybe that's a product of me being someone who's just like gone through so much therapy where it's just like, oh my God, like I don't need this in my superhero blockbuster. And if you are going to go for it, like really, really go for it and go dark with it, and don't have it be like, don't have the quips, but also try and do like, it's actually a serious movie about serious, mental health and emotional issues. What do you guys say to that?
Okay, first off, I would say that I think there's a difference between how the film portrays this and how the conversation around the film is portraying this. To me, yes, is the barely metaphorical stuff about, bipolar and depression stuff. Like, they're like, it's a metaphor. I was like, it's plot. Yeah. It's barely a metaphor. But, like you said, it's a comic book blockbuster. This is not a Bergman film. And I feel like to have it at the level it even is in a Marvel blockbuster, that we can be like, this is not just about stopping the giant glowing doohickey in the sky. We want it to be about something. I mean, if you want to call that like A for effort for trying, I would much rather it be about that than, like we said with Brave New World, where it's like, no, this is about, the depths of political darkness, that even as dark as we're taking it in the movie, it's still not as depressing as real life. And but to do it, you also have to do all the things you just criticized, which is film people in separate rooms and splice them together and try to make it fit with 3 pages of expositional dialogue. From that respect, I feel like Thunderbolts does that a lot better. That to make it about actually something real, while also knowing that your audience doesn't need to be well versed in therapy speak to understand it. I thought it went really well. I feel like Marvel has a decent track record with this because of WandaVision. You know, like that was a whole show about grief, but they also had several more hours to pursue it too. So the fact
maybe
that they
that's
were
a
able
good
to
comparison
pull off what they did.
I felt similarly about WandaVision of when that show was sort of like a style exercise in its like first couple, you know, episodes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so fun and so like clever. And then when it started being like, actually, this is about the trauma of the, or as Jamie Lee Curtis says it, the trauma of what is that character's name? Who does Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch? And I was just sort of like, guys, I'm not here for this. Or just sort of like, I'm not invested enough.
It's a coping mechanism.
Right, I'm not invested enough in this character to like care about their like the grief of Vision. But continue. But that's a good, I think, comparison to sort of like some of my feelings about this movie.
Yeah, so just to wrap up what I was thinking, like the fact that they were able to introduce a brand new character to movie viewers, right? Not comic book people, but to introduce somebody, sort of set up a little bit of a backstory where it doesn't go off the rails, introduce their very real sort of personal struggles, and, you know, bring them into this sort of found family in a way that makes you care about somebody you just met like 90 minutes ago. I thought they executed it pretty well.
My thing on it is, I don't know that you have to have, if you're going to deal with some of the, you know, emotional, mental issues in this film, I don't know that you have to, Jesse, as you say, go full bore on them. This is still a piece of entertainment. It's still a piece of comic book movie making. And to me, the fact that they, you know, took a risk in terms of the way they put together the plot, the fact that they even addressed these issues a little bit, that's something praiseworthy, and it's something clearly audiences are connecting with. I mean, Jesse, your view on this is decided not just on this podcast, but, you know, nationally among all,
I'm in the
critics,
minority.
among all audiences.
Yeah.
It's a minority view. I'm not saying it's not, you know, I'm not invalidating what you have to say by any stretch of the imagination. But for most people, they're coming out of this and they're saying, I appreciate that I didn't get another CGI mess with a glowing alien in the sky that was the whole plot, that the plot had more to do with real human kind of things that people deal with. And look, we're in an imaginary comic book world. So going too deep into dealing with those things, you know, like Josh said, we're not making an Ingmar
which is
Bergman
maybe my
film.
thing of like, maybe I'm sort of the kind of person of like, if we're going to deal with, you know, serious stuff, like let's do it in like that kind of movie, and like you know, keep my vegetables away from my meats on the plate sort of thing. And like going into a movie like this being like, you have such a fun cast, and like just do like a cool kick-ass action movie, and like that would have, whereas this, even though I appreciate somewhat spoilers, but I don't think this is that big of a spoiler, but like the movie doesn't end with like we had to punch depression in the face, but even still, like when the movie ended with like we can defeat evil by all coming together and hugging, there was something a little like to my taste buds about like, this feels like a little bit like when you have to sit through kind of like a corporate like mental health sermon at work or something like that.